Yeah, good afternoon. Hi, everybody. Appreciate all the members of the board getting together today here. So, did you guys know that just in the restaurant industry alone, more than $80 billion in the month of April was lost in revenue as a result of COVID-19? That's a huge number. A little bit scary, right? So, we're no exception, right? We have an established business in North Park. It's been doing really well for us for better part of a decade now. And unfortunately, with COVID, we need to innovate as well for us to continue to serve our communities, for us to be able to operate, or for us to maintain employment for our team members, incomes for ourselves and our homes. It's important that we come up with a solution that'll both keep us safe and be sustainable, and hopefully something that we could scale and help to expand the business like we had planned to do before all of these unfortunate circumstances started. So, with that, there's more than 4,000 licensed food trucks operating in San Diego County alone. That's a big number. So, why I'm here today is to talk to you guys about the reasons why entering that space, the mobile food truck space, makes a lot of sense for us as a business. So, operating in North Park this last decade or so has obviously been very good for us. There's a lot of potential within that same market, something we'll elaborate on a little bit. Expansion potential is big throughout primarily San Diego, and probably more of the short-term goals we'll discuss, and then even more opportunity from there. Investment analysis. Obviously, there's a cost associated with the expansion, one that's considerably less than that of an additional brick and mortar restaurant, even if we weren't in this COVID climate. And then ongoing expenses. I'll break down some of the key points when we compare the costs of operating our existing building versus the costs associated with the mobile food truck space. And then I'll be happy to take any questions. So, when it comes to our local market potential, we're already established in North Park, right? So, initially, the rollout of the program would be to stay close to home. One of the primary reasons, I'm sure you read in my research reports, the permit factor is an issue with us as we start off. So, being local and the necessity for us to operate within a certain space from our existing restaurant really helps to take away some of the red tape and challenges that we might face if we were just to say, go operate in downtown San Diego right off of the bat. So being near home and having, a full kitchen, having all of the health permits and everything else that are already established, those boxes that are already sort of checked will help us to get our feet moving and get going in the mobile food truck space. Furthermore, we have a following. So we all know in North Park that our customers are loyal to us. Many of them drive from nearby communities, a lot of the vibrant communities in downtown San Diego or nearby. So we have nightlife and Padre games and the like, things that draw a lot of traffic for us. Those folks commute. So if we're operating in our parking lot, we would still have that same foot traffic, presumably. But furthermore, being close to downtown, as we begin to expand, or when we get to the point of considering a second truck or things of that nature, being downtown or close to downtown is very key for us. So, some of the key highlights when you talk about downtown San Diego, they have relaxed permit requirements. So within many areas throughout San Diego, as you know, you need to have a permit in order to operate or park on the street. Downtown San Diego, excluding a couple of very specific areas, it's a little bit more of a first come, first serve environment. So, what that does for us is obviously a reduced cost effect, but then also it affords us much more flexibility than what we would have if we were to go through all of those steps and try and get permits to open another restaurant, things of that nature. So, essentially, we could function on days where there's Padre games or the Pride Parade or something that drives a lot of traffic and makes it an attractive business venture for us. And then days where there's not much going on, or inclement weather, things of that nature, we can simply avoid it. Lastly, the partnership opportunities, huge for us. So being able to partner with, say, a brewery or some other type of winery or entertainment business where they don't have food, being able to set up in their parking lots is a pretty typical practice, as you know, and one that could help us to grow our own brand and also be able to build some of these relationships and possibly get our footing further into the community of San Diego, which will lead us into discussing our longer scale expansion plan. So as I discussed in my research report, when we look at the license requirements and some of the regulations, health permits, things of that nature, they're fairly consistent throughout San Diego. We know that some of the beach communities may be a little bit more challenging, or in some cases, like with Encinitas, simply not an option. There's obviously a very deep well of different walks of life and communities and events and all throughout San Diego County. So we would have the ability to, look at many different potential partnerships, right? Whether that was going towards the North County part of the region and partnering with some of the breweries, right? There's a number of breweries out there that don't have food service, sort of in an industrial area with not a lot of restaurants nearby, mostly driven by them being newer and not being established. And so they're supported largely by food trucks, and that's a partnership we would be able to explore and potentially be able to piggyback on an established brand like Stone or Belching Beef or something of the like, and be able to grow our own brand. Much like I had discussed with our local, events or even downtown going further, we follow the money. So if event is viable for us, it could be a one-time occurrence. We can go and we can take advantage of that. And where things are maybe there's higher overhead, or if it's a swap meet type event and we're paying for space to operate, we'll be able to pick and choose when and where we want to operate. We can avoid those high cost events. We can avoid the ones that are maybe a little too hectic or stressful for our team members, and decide what will be beneficial for the business, where we can drive revenue, keep everyone safe, and still be able to operate every single day. So obviously, then there's questions about investment, right? So, as you know, reading through the report, just to give sort of a topical overview, we could have a lot of flexibility in the sense that we can purchase on the low end of things, or we could go a little bit more luxurious. And as you know, that I found, in my opinion, the best way to go, and we could do it for about $125,000, would be to get a mid-cost truck by purchasing used, but taking the diligence and to have an accountant. To have a mechanic inspect the truck, the equipment, things of that nature. But $125 initial investment, as opposed to the going rate for a restaurant, a brick and mortar restaurant in San Diego County, is closer to $500,000. So considerable savings up front just in the purchasing and other cost effect, right? The ability to purchase used equipment or to have varying qualities of trucks, right? Perhaps we have the La Costa area where we need something a little bit more high end and a custom menu that would go with that. And then if we're going into, say downtown near a Padre game, something that's a little bit less luxurious, but a little bit more driven with efficiency, so that we can have more tickets, quicker ticket times, higher capacity. So that flexibility and the ability to purchase and kind of customize to what our intention is for that truck, or that part of our fleet. Perhaps it'll be a versatile portfolio of trucks that we would work towards acquiring. There's a lot of flexibility there, as well as the obvious cost savings. As we go into the ongoing expenses, as you know, they are comparable to those of the brick and mortar restaurant on a day-to-day or week-to-week, month-to-month basis. However, it's important to call out that the labor costs are exponentially lower, right? If we consider that we would have 12-hour operating time frame for a given day, perhaps 4 hours of setup and cleanup, and 2 to 3 employees at a time, we're looking at a monthly labor cost of somewhere in the neighborhood of $15,000, whereas in our brick and mortar restaurant, it's closer to $50,000 per period. So there's a huge labor expense that we would save, obviously, up front. Minimal savings across the board when we look at the expenses of purchasing trucks versus paying rent and or mortgages on properties. Sort of the intangible costs that aren't as visible, but when we don't have the amount of personnel, there's obviously a savings effect with human resources, benefits, some of the other costly things that are associated with having more team members on our staff. And then lastly, the reduced lead time for expansion. When we look at opening another restaurant, typically we're looking at about a year or more from the time that we decide to open that restaurant, sign the lease, and then go through all of those processes that it would take to source the equipment, so on and so forth. With the mobile truck, we could add another truck in a matter of weeks. Very simple, very flexible. So to conclude, to me, the obvious choice is to go with the food truck expansion. More cost effective, it's simplified, it utilizes our existing assets. We don't have to purchase everything from the ground up. Again, we'd be able to sort of piggyback on the kitchen and some of the things that we already have in place. Growth potential is tremendous and flexible, and it's safe and sustainable. It's the right thing to do for our communities and for our team members to have that mobile food service, that outdoor environment, and to help do our part to stop the spread of COVID-19.